Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. It's Judy from Client Hub here. I hope everybody had a great week. If you're joining me today live, I hope you'll go ahead and say hello in the chat. Let me know that you're here to listen to today's topic. So we're going to jump in just a moment here. Today's topic is tapping the power of analogies to help motivate change. Um, in other words, it's kind of using the power of persuasion, right? I'm kind of researching the idea here. We look at analogies as it's a way to help us persuade other people. So, making it easier for them to understand our point of views, helping them to make better, we hope, better decisions. As I mentioned, it's like a power tool for persuasion because we're not just trying to persuade somebody to do something for the benefit of us. We're helping them to really understand. We're using something familiar to them to explain our point of view or to look at new ways of trying something. And make sure that, persuasion, when you're using persuasion or analogies, that you're thinking about your audience that you're communicating to. So think about, let's jump in and talk about, using analogies with your clients, because I think that's really what I'm going to talk about today mostly. But I think it relates to so many other things, whether it be selling to your clients, so trying to get your clients to understand the value of your services. Um, if it's trying to persuade your clients to, change their process, adopt new technologies, stick with deadlines, get things to you when you need them, all of those. So, all too often, we set internal expectations and we don't communicate or help people that are involved in those processes to understand the why. So, hey, that's a really good thing I'm getting to right now, is talking about the why. And really the analogies are helping us with the why, making it relatable to them. But I also think we could talk about using these tools, this power tool of persuasion or analogies, to help your team to better understand and help them in adopting change and processes. And I think a lot of you probably know where I'm going with this. So, in my role here at Client Hub and my role as an accountant and a leader, and previous roles that I've had, you know, I've had to work to try to help people to understand the benefits of change. And, you know, I love it because, if I can help make somebody's life better, and just like we think about our clients, if I can make things easier for my clients, if I can provide them with something new that will help their business run better or help them be more organized, that's really, really great. Oh, by the way, I'm just looking at my picture. I was going to talk about the sign, not to get off topic here, right? So it's been over a year since we've been at a conference. We're looking forward to conferences coming up again soon. But I brought out one of my old stand-up banners from the conference so I could just have a little bit of a change of a background. So I almost forgot how to set that up. That's why there's something new in the background. I did use an analogy and adopt change for that. Okay, so let's jump in and come up with some great examples. So first of all, let's talk about some of the keys of how to create analogies. And again, if you're joining me live, I know it's a Friday, but if you're joining me live, just go ahead and pop me a note in the chat. Let me know that you're here. If you have any comments on the topic that I'm talking about or want to provide any input, please go ahead and post that into the chat. Um, so, so when you're using an analogy, it needs to be relevant and relatable to the person, to the topic. And so let's jump in. I'm going to take a look as I had to use this just this week with a new client. And so the issue was this brand new client, we were doing some catch up work for her, and she wasn't getting me information as quickly as I needed it. She wasn't getting it in a timely manner, and we were really in a crunch. Um, the first thing that I needed to do was communicate that to her. What were the expectations? And I did that very clearly. We did it in a phone conversation, which for me, I was in a rush. Normally, I'll write that stuff down and put it into a document so I can refer back to it or clients can refer back to it. But in this case, I didn't necessarily do that. So we created some tasks in Client Hub. We were collecting some information from this client, and she was really kind of taking a little bit too long to get back to me. So I gave her a call on the phone. I like to pick up the phone and call people sometimes. I picked up the phone, I gave her a call, and I said, hey, here's the deal. I'm still waiting on these things. And of course, she had all these excuses. I've been busy, blah, 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 blah. And so I thought about it, and I knew before I had that call with her, I thought to myself, how am I going to frame this? And that's, I guess we'll look back. So I needed to prepare for this phone call, just like I would prepare for a meeting, right? I had to prepare for this phone call and assume that she was going to have excuses for not getting this information to me. So I wanted to be prepared with an analogy. And actually, I wrote these down in my notes because these are the same. I've got notes in front of me, and these are kind of the notes I put down in writing so that when I had that call with her, I could kind of, go over these things. So I explained to her that we were waiting on documents so that we could do 8 months worth of bank reconciliations so that her CPA could prepare her tax return. Yes, this client came to me on April 16th looking for us to catch up on all of last year so she could get her QuickBooks ready to pass on to her accountant for her taxes to be prepared. But she also needed a referral to an accountant. That's a whole other story. Okay, so I quickly kind of went a little bit out of the norm. I said, yes, I think I can help you out with this. If you can get me the documents really quickly, I need them by this day, this time. So I created those client tasks, and she did not respond. And this is when that phone call took place. So when she started making up the excuses about having been so busy, and I said, I need to help you understand. Her name is Rose. I said, Rose, I need to help you to understand why this is important, especially if we're going to work with you moving forward. And I said, imagine that she's a restaurant, by the way. And I said, imagine, Rose, if your produce supplier were late in delivering the products to you. How would that affect your business? And I said, first of all, talk about how would it affect your workflow? And I thought to myself, I said to her, imagine, the preparation of food and salad and vegetables could get delayed, which could, really create a backlog in your work. Restaurants are very process oriented. They do a lot of their preparation in advance of when, all the customers come into the restaurant. So she said, yeah, if my produce truck were late, it would really create a backlog, in the work for my prep staff, were they sous chefs, I believe they're called. And I said, okay, well, let me explain to you what happens when we request information to you and it arrives to us late. It has a similar effect. And I let her know that, for instance, we can't do the work. If we don't have the documents, these were bank statements, we can't do the work for you. And if we can't do the work, we can't deliver the final outcome, which is a clean set of books for 2020 for tax prep. We can't deliver those to you in a timely manner for you to go out and find a CPA that will, prepare your taxes for the deadline of May 17th. So, I really kind of explained that to her, that the longer it took her, the longer it took us, the less likely that outcome of that tax return. I also let her know that, because of that, we set aside time. So if I know that a client needs something done and we schedule it for a specific day of the week or the month, that we're going to have that work done for them. But again, it's all dependent on the information that we need to gather from them. So I said, if we don't have what we need from you, that time that we put aside, that block of time, now we have to figure out what are we going to fill that block with. We put it aside for you. And, we monetize that. We know that that block of time is we're going to get paid to do your work. So again, that could affect the deliverables. And these deliverables in this case were a set of books for tax preparation for 2020. But in the future, they could delay financial reports, accurate account balances, the payment of bills, collection of invoices from customers. So all of those things, it's just a ripple effect. So then I kind of went into a little bit deeper with her, and I said, let's think back to that produce truck of being late again. So now, how does it affect your staff? So I said, I would imagine that if your staff doesn't have the fruit and vegetables that they need to prepare in time for the dinner rush, it's going to create more stress on them. If that truck comes in late, they're going to be more stressful. They're going to have to rush. Maybe they're going to do sloppy work. Somebody could get hurt if they're using slicers or something like that. And they could really make critical errors so they can meet those opening service deadlines. So, she really could start to see the understanding of what that late delivery of the product or whatever it is that we needed could really have that ripple effect on a business. She was very grateful for me kind of pointing this out, and now she's starting to get the picture. So I jumped in again, and the next thing I said is, let's go one level deeper, Rose. Let's take a look at if that produce truck is late arriving to your destination, how might it affect your other vendors? Now we're really getting deep into it, right? So let's say she uses a loading dock at her restaurant, right? Because they have crates and trucks of food and vegetables. So if that produce truck was scheduled to be on that loading dock at 9 a.m. and he's late, and then there are other vendors that are scheduled to deliver items, suddenly that one vendor's effect of being late has a rippling effect on all those other trucks that are backed up waiting to get to that loading dock to drop off the food. So now not only does it affect them, but their next customer in line, because that's going to put them off schedule to get to the next place. We're really getting deep now of using the analogies to understand the effects of not following the schedule, which again is what I was trying to get into the topic I was talking about. So then I said, lastly, let's think about what that late produce truck, right? It was just a stupid late produce truck. What effect might it have to your customers? So let's see, the menu items might not be available because if the produce truck is late, the team can't prepare the food. They might not be able to get those things, so the menu items might not be available. Or maybe you're going to use day old produce, right? And now your customers aren't going to have fresh food. So just kind of that was a big analogy, right? And that really got Rose to thinking, hey, I get it. I get why it's so important that when Judy says she needs, let's say, a bank statement by the 5th of the month, why, if I get that to her late, it could have a rippling effect. And it could affect her staff, her production, the output of the deliveries for her business, how it could affect my other customers. So by using that analogy, I was able to help Rose understand and put into perspective why my deadline is so important. Not only that, but you know what? I had a message from Rose just a few days later, and she had a similar situation, and it wasn't with a produce delivery person. I think it was somebody that was delivering paper goods to her, and the paper goods didn't arrive, which was a little bit of chaotic. I think they arrived a day later. And she told me how she started thinking about that whole analogy and how that really had an impact on running of her business. So one of the things that Rose learned from that is also don't wait and order things for it to be delivered just in time. We talk about just in time delivery, right? Make sure that you have them before you run out of them. So that was a really, really good one. I enjoyed that conversation with her, and it really made a big difference. But I want to talk about this as it relates to kind of, again, getting answers from clients. So what I did in that whole idea of that example was I found something relatable to Rose's business and how a similar situation, a delay in delivery, could have that ripple effect. So that's really important. What you need to do is find something relatable to your clients. Now it could be, if they're construction, and I think about, so we just had a pool. You can't see it up; it's out there. We had a pool built in our yard this past winter, and it was just amazing to see how well organized the company that did this pool build was, because there were so many things involved in it, and it ran like clockwork. There were guys with big equipment that had to dig the hole, and then the guys that came in with the rebar, and concrete guys, and tile, and plumbers, and electricians, and the guys that built the big screen room around the pool. It was just absolutely amazing. And thinking back, if just one of those people had screwed up, right, then everybody else after that would have been they would have been off schedule, and it could have created chaos in that. And especially at this time, this day and age, because that pool company, they're building like 80 pools at a time, so that could have really been a big deal. What about analogies for your team? So we recently had a situation here. So we use Client Hub, of course, for our internal workflow. And one of my team members was looking, so we were talking about using Client Hub for workflow. And she goes ahead and she was telling me about her process was using, going into the internal workspace for the client to do the work. And I said, well, what would happen if, if you're just going into the client workspace to do the work, you don't get a whole big high level view of all the work you need to do. You're only getting a view of the work you need to do for that specific client. And Jackie assured me that she knew which clients she had to work for which days, and what work needed to be done. And so the workflow was really guidance for her. So we went back and forth, and she really dug her feet in and said, I want to do it my way. This is the way I know how to do it. Well, fast forward a couple weeks, and I was reviewing our workflow on the jobs dashboard, and Jackie doesn't work on Fridays, so she was off on Friday, and I was reviewing everything on Friday, and I caught that she had missed doing one of the client, just a small little job, but she had missed doing a job for a client that week. So I had to go back to her the following week, and again, using an analogy of the what if. And so I have to say, I don't even remember how I approached it with her, but I talked about, being able to see everything that you have to do, like that kind of high level overview. Think about it as looking at a map. So you can't just look at the road that you're traveling right now. If you're going somewhere, you need to take a look at, okay, how am I going to get to each of those roads? And that's a tough one, because so many people now are using GPS systems, right? I grew up in a world where my father and I, funny enough, we used to sit down and read the atlas. Okay, I am a complete nerd, I guess. That was like our thing. And I would just look at maps of cities and states and maps of the country, and it was just so cool. But I knew where I was going, and I always knew the road to get there, which we don't necessarily with GPS. We just kind of follow, and it says, take a right here, take a left in 1 mile. So that was kind of the analogy, I believe, that I was using with Jackie, is being able to understand and see from a high level, what's the big picture? What does all the work that you have to do, not just the work for this client? Because if you're just looking at that one thing, and think about if you use Waze or Google Maps, if you're just looking at where you are, then suddenly you could come up to a roadblock or something unexpected that you're not aware of, or you could forget something. Whereas if you've got the whole big picture of the map and you can see where there could be roadblocks or traffic, that's why we all love Waze, right? Or Google Maps, so we can see where the traffic is. Then we know where we might need to make changes, or at least we know what's on the way. Think of restaurants, gas stations. You're going to get me back on that. So it's Friday, right? I'm in Florida. I'm in the Southeast. I had to go out at 5 o'clock the other morning to fill up 2 cars with gas and it took me 5 gas stations to find somebody who had it. So that's a whole other story. I'm curious. So I don't see a lot of folks chatting today. Let me go ahead and say hello to everyone. So if you are on there and you've got an analogy and you want to share it with our group, go ahead and post that into the chat if you've got something that you've used before. But again, I want to talk about it being relatable, and don't be afraid to have conversations, because the things that I see so often, and I've seen this for years. Remember, Client Hub's not my first rodeo here, but accounting firms that will tell me, "Oh, I could never ask my clients to change," right? I could never ask them to change a process. And you can ask them to change a process or to try something new. Actually, don't even think about asking them to make a change. Think about it as giving them a better opportunity. Frame it that way. And when you come up with the analogy, frame it like, I'm not making you do something really, really tough. I'm just looking to give you an opportunity to do something to make it easier for you. So that's one way to kind of frame it. The other way, to think about is, I hear so many times that accountants will, for instance, they'll find a piece of technology they like, and it could be anything. And then they can't get their team on board with the technology. And so, they'll say, well, I'd really love to use, I don't know, Receipt Bank Dext, or I'd really love to use HubDoc or Bill.com, or I'd prefer to use QuickBooks Online versus QuickBooks Desktop. But they get pushback from the people that are going to be involved in that, and whether it be their clients, their team. So finding ways to give them analogies. And analogies can be something as simple as a phone. you know um, it used to be that we used old landlines, which, by the way, mine just rang, my landline, right? But we adopted this as technology, and not a lot of time ago. What the first iPhone was 2007, so we're talking 13 years ago, 14 years ago. But think about that type of change that we made, or changes we made in banking. I mean, who used to do we used to go to the bank with paper checks to make deposits, right? And now it's as easy as taking a snapshot of a check with your phone. So why wouldn't you try that new technology if it's going to be easier? So those are some analogies you can use, something that's maybe a little bit relatable to everybody, whether it be your clients or your team members. And then, you know, if you get to the point where you just can't find an analogy, if you can't find an analogy that you think would be relevant to your client, ask them to start the conversation. So think about Rose going back to the restaurant. And what if I couldn't come up with that analogy, but I said to Rose, let me ask you this quick question. What is something in your business that could really be affected by the delay in delivery of a product or service, right? So now, instead of me coming up with the idea, now she's starting the conversation, or she's framing it. And maybe when she frames it versus me kind of coming up with the idea, suddenly it could make a lot more sense. Same with my team. you know with Jackie, when she was, kind of goofed up and do that client job. And I did whip her with the wet noodle like I usually do. I don't, but we have the conversation. And so, thinking about, well, Jackie, what if that missing work for that client was something that I missed for you? What if I forgot to process payroll and you didn't get paid on Friday? How would that work out for you? Or I could even ask her, what could affect you that I would forget to do. So I think the big thing as I kind of come to a close here is that we all need to step back and think about it. We need to clearly communicate and we need to use the power of analogies. Need to figure out the power of persuasion, and not in a bad way, by the way, because sometimes you think of the power of persuasion, that's like sales, selling cars. But how analogies and the power of persuasion can really help you to move your practice forward, to help you better deliver service to your clients, to help you have a more harmonious inter-office experience, and just make things flow a whole lot easier. So I hope this topic today helped you out in understanding how to use those. Again, whether you're online or offline watching this, I would love to hear if you have any analogies that you've used, or if the suggestion or idea has helped you in your practice or your business, or in any relationship for that matter. I think that would be really great. So I want to thank everybody for today. It looks like we are running at, I can't even look, I kept it under 30 minutes. So we're at 1:27 p.m. Eastern time. If you want to get a hold of me, you can email me at judy@clienthub.app. Let me go ahead and put that in the chat. If I can type here, I can't type and talk. Excellent. So go ahead and put that in there. If you have questions about this topic, you want to noodle it over a little bit, just have a conversation, you're welcome to go ahead and reach me. Also, we are scheduled next for Friday, May 28th. Now that topic and date and time is to be determined. So keep an eye on our Facebook page. That is a Friday that kicks off a holiday weekend. So we're working to go ahead and get folks, see if we can't get a live worked out. So stay tuned to see that. Stay tuned to see if we have a guest. Also, if you are interested in being a guest host to kind of talk about a topic that you're passionate about, related to bookkeeping and accounting and workflow and client collaboration and, just general business stuff, please feel free to drop me an email. I'd love an opportunity to chat with you. You do or do not have to be a Client Hub user. It's all up to you. And we can go ahead and get that on the calendar and have a conversation. That's it. I think so. So everybody, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Great end to your week. And I will look forward to hopefully seeing you at a conference with a banner sometime soon. And I will talk to you all in a couple weeks. Take care, health, and everything to you. Bye-bye.